Hello and welcome back to the Mindful Belly Don't Eat Your Feelings podcast. I'm your host and health coach, Ellie Rome. In this episode, I'm so excited to share with you guys an interview I had with Annette Lopez. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner and a mental wellness coach. She's a trained psychotherapist and master NLP coach, and she helps clients achieve a wide range of personal, emotional, and physical health goals. With that, let's go to the show. Hi, Annette. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for taking the time to be on here.
absolutely.
Yes, I'm so excited to get to talk with you. For our listeners, I just had a session with Annette and it was amazing. We did some energy work and it was really, really healing and some childhood stuff that I've had. So yeah, she's awesome. That's why I wanted to have her on here today. But if we can start off with Annette, if you want to just share with listeners who you are, what you do.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I feel like in Austin, it's like a 6 degree of Kevin Bacon kind of situation, right? Like we met through MSW Lounge, which is health and wellness based. And the community here is just amazing. And I'm in health and wellness. I'm a nutritional therapist, and I have a background of psychotherapy as well. So I was a practicing psychotherapist. I've always had this inclination to want to help people. Like, how can we just be better versions of ourselves, right? And drop the stuff we've picked up from childhood or life. And I went through a period where I lost 70 pounds, and I saw how much my depression just completely lifted when I went paleo and eliminated a lot of inflammatory foods. And I thought, okay, I'm helping people, I'm a therapist, but the missing link was nutrition. Like I just right away saw that because I went through that process. And so I went back to studying nutrition. And now what I do is just more of a holistic approach to wellness. So I really value nutrition and then the psychological and spiritual health as well, because I feel like you can't have just one or the other. It's all encompassing. So somebody comes to work with me and I say, okay, are you open to working on yourself as well, aside of nutrition and a meal plan and whatnot? And for those that are committed enough and want to invest in themselves, I say, all right, let's do it. Because I've been there. I was 70 pounds heavier. I had severe depression. I was way more introverted. I was just a different person. And I want to get this in the hands of everybody. Like, how can you find what's right for you and work on yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally as well?
Yes, thank you, Annette. I
Yeah.
think this is so important for people because so often I get the same thing. People come want just like a nutrition plan or just tell me what to eat. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But it ends up being like that's like the first session, and then it
Yeah.
ends up being just so much more. It's like so much is such like a psychological, emotional
Mm-hmm.
healing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
And for you, I guess if we can go back a little bit, like
Yeah.
before, like how'd you even find paleo? Like what was your journey like?
Yeah, so I had the quarter life crisis. And as a woman, it kind of hit at 24, 23, not 25, And I was 70 pounds heavier, but I was doing all the right things, air quote, I was eating everything organic whole grain, everything organic dairy, a lot of soy, just a lot of foods that were inflammatory. And I went to a wellness clinic because a friend of mine had done the HCG diet, which I know is very controversial, but I'd had seen friends that had done it and they had great results. So I signed up and I did it, and I lost about 15 pounds. And the doctor said, this is great. And now when you go back to real life, not on this protocol, you can't be eating these foods that are causing inflammation in your body. It's contributing to mood stuff, possibly your weight gain. I had almost no nutrients in my body. Like it was just anything you can name, and I had it: adrenal, fatigue, thyroid, all this stuff. So it was actually, I kind of credit it to me just starting on the HCG diet and then the doctor being very direct and saying, hey, this is great. You can lose the weight, but you need a sustainable lifestyle after this, because you can't go back to eating all the grains and the dairy and the soy. It was just putting on so much weight on you, and your body doesn't like that. The food sensitivity test clearly says it. So shift it around, look at a paleo protocol, see how you feel. And I did that, and I was losing, even after HCG, like a pound a day. Just, it was melting off because I had so much inflammation. You know, a lot of it was water weight and just toxic stuff that I was getting rid of in my body because I wasn't having the intake of the grains and the dairy and the soy anymore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so after that, how long ago was that? You said that you were like 24, 25?
Gosh, that's when I kind of had the quarter life crisis, and I was like, I got to look at health. So almost 10 years ago, actually. Yeah, just
Wow.
about.
Yeah. And then
Mhm.
and then from that point, how did it evolve into like more of a spiritual, emotional path for you?
I was raised in a very traditional Catholic Christian home. So there was always this message from my mom and my parents, like, hey, there is a creator, whatever you want to call it, creator, universe, God. And I saw how it helped my mom just weather so many storms emotionally. So I kind of knew in my heart, okay, the spirituality aspect is really important. So it was always in the background. But then when she passed in 2013, very unexpectedly, and growing up, I thought, oh my gosh, this is the thing that's gonna just be the hardest thing in life, because she and I were like Gilmore Girls, Lorelai and Rory Gilmore. We were best friends, and my dad had passed when I was about 10. So she was like, I only had one parent left. So when she passed very unexpectedly, I gave myself a year to just eat, pray, love it, figure it out, just to get through it. And I leaned so heavily on spirituality, and that was just a grounding force for me to kind of get through that loss. And I wanted to grieve it when it happened, because I had friends that had so many huge losses in their lives, but they kind of put it in the back burner and they didn't deal with it. So then 10 years later, 5 years later, they said, okay, I'll deal with it now. And then they had to open the wound back up again, right? And I thought, I'm already in the shit storm. Sorry for the
That's okay.
word. It's like, I'm already in the storm, the poop storm, and let me deal with it now. And I did, and I just went heavy to spirituality. Yeah.
And how did God, thank you so much for sharing this. And
Yeah.
how did that, like, what kind of resources, I guess for anybody that's listening that may be going through something similar, what kind of, what was your starting point? Like how did you even know like where to begin?
Yeah, where to start, right? You know, if you're in a place of, gosh, grieving and loss, I think it's important to just be still and know that what is meant to come to you will come to you. Meaning, if you drive by a bookstore and you're like, I just want to go look in, and well, you can't right now, but maybe you can right now, maybe you can't. I don't know where you live because of all this stuff going on, but go to a bookstore, walk around, see what calls to you. Go on YouTube, Google just meditation, right? If even just getting still and like a quick prayer, something like that, that's a start. What was really amazing for me was just being in nature. And that's where I felt created, like connected to a creator, divine source. And I went to, for example, I went to Sedona maybe about a month after my mom passed. And I told one friend, and I said, look, if I go off the radar, I'm in Sedona. Here's a hotel. I'm alive, right? Because I heard Sedona was so spiritual. You have amazing hikes. There's a lot of healers there. And there's something about that just geographic location that is healing for people. And when I got there, I just was in awe of the mountains, the red rocks, everything that was there. And I felt like I was being nurtured. I felt like I was supported. And it was so refreshing because I could go on a hike, nobody would be around me. And if I needed to break down and cry, I broke down and I cried. If I needed to just feel what was going on, I could feel it. And so often now we're disconnected from nature and we're on our phones and just so much stimulation that we kind of lower the voice of what's in our gut and our higher selves and creator. And we're like, why do I feel so alone? Well, you're shutting everything off and you're plugged into something that is not it's not source. It's not that nature effect. It's not that connection to the universe. And getting in nature was a really big part of it for me when I started out. So I would say just get in nature and don't be listening to a podcast. Don't be listening to music. Just be and start there. Start there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And how did that impact, I guess, evolve into your practice, or were you already a counselor at the time or a therapist?
I already had my master's degrees in psychotherapy. So I did take some time off after she passed to just regroup and say, okay, what the heck is going on? And in that regrouping period, I kind of connected the dots of, okay, this is hitting me really hard and I'm grieving, but I thought it would have hit me harder. Why is that? And so I started looking at how I was living my life and my lifestyle versus a lot of people that when you're in grief, and it's understandable, I can appreciate how when you're in grief, you want to eat the tasty food, you want to go have drinks, all these different ways to self-soothe, right? But I had that time after her passing to reevaluate, like, okay, I just got a major pattern interrupt in life. I'm at a new fork now because what I thought my life was going to look like with my mom in it isn't there anymore. So what is this blank canvas in front of me now? What do I want to do? And that's when I connected the dots of, okay, my nutrition is helping me to not be in this as bad of a depressive state as I thought I would have been. Okay, maybe I want to help people with nutrition and the mindset so they don't have to go through this, so they can feel better in life and get to that next step that they want to get to. So that container helped me connect the dots. And then I started going back to school for nutrition and studying that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And what got you, I guess, involved in counseling in the first place, or therapy, psychotherapy?
Yeah. Growing up, I was always the person that people would go to, like between periods or at recess, or my friends would call me at the end of the day, like, oh my gosh, can I talk to you? I've just had such a hard day. I'd be like, okay, sure. And then they'd start talking to me. And I loved helping people and being that container and space for them. And I thought, okay, like my heart was like, you're meant to help people in this capacity, I mean, I even still get Uber drivers, like I tell them what I do, they're like, oh really, you're a coach, you used to be a therapist, here's what's going on. I'm like, okay, got it, let's see what we can do, right? It's just kind of always happened.
Yeah. And so how has that evolved in the last couple of years? What is your your current practice look like?
Currently it's coaching. So everything is done on Zoom or, a call or FaceTime. And I, in the last, want to say couple years, have incorporated neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, which is basically just the study of communication, and you work with your unconscious mind, meaning you're the part of yourself that directs your thoughts, beliefs, actions, what you do. 95% of that is unconscious. And with the NLP and the tools and techniques I've learned, I can help people and coach them to say, okay, here's a belief you've had for the last 20, 30 years, 10 years, however long. This can be released in a matter of minutes. And that was very different than what I was taught in graduate school. You know, therapy takes years. You have to just, you know, keep going, and you're going to be in therapy for a long time. Whereas now with these tools, it's way faster. It's like years of therapy in minutes, because you go in and you work with the unconscious mind, with rewiring your brain essentially, and releasing those old thought patterns and emotions that get stored in your body, in your physiology. And you release it, and then you can implement a newer place, a newer belief in its place. It's like updating an app. You know, apps essentially for everybody, 0 to 7, that's where you kind of have this concrete imprinting phase. So that's where we get a lot of our beliefs, our perceptions on what life should be, everything. 0 to 7, that's kind of like the base state. And so when you're, you know, in your 20s, 30s plus, it's like, okay, upgrade the app on your phone, upgrade the app in your brain, in your soul. Like, what old programming and messages you got, do they still work? Are they working for you? Or would you rather have something that's going to be more beneficial for you in life now? And that's what I essentially do in the coaching with the mindset work.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, 1 second, I'm plugging in my computer, but I'm so excited to dive into this more. Sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay. So around this, so I think this is huge. And I think so many people, we need to hear this, that 95% of our actions are just unconscious programming, conditioning. And it's like, why do we keep falling in the same loops? Why do I keep acting this way towards my partner? Or why do I keep eating when I know consciously this is not right for me? And so, so what are, I guess, how do we tap into our unconscious? You said through the NLP, but can you expand a little more on that?
Yeah. What it looks like is, I always kind of start off with like a grounding meditation, and I tell people, leave some prior knowledge at the door. And I know might be like a mantra people hear in yoga class, but leave prior knowledge at the door, meaning whatever you've been told before about yourself or how you function or what you're capable of, leave it at the door. And I want you to just allow this time in our coaching session as like a thought experiment, okay? Get curious with why you do what you do. And if you approach it with some curiosity, there's less judgment there, and you're kind of looking at it a bit more objectively, like, okay, awareness. Why do I do these certain things? Why do I go to this certain food when I'm feeling tired or sad? Why do I have this reaction with my partner? Why do I procrastinate in business, right? Why am I not putting more time into my health? And starting with a curiosity kind of takes that judgment off your actions. And then I would just say awareness is the first step. And learning the NLP communication tools helps, because then you can have conversations with your partner, be it business or a coach or friend, and say, hey, I'm noticing that you maybe have this kind of reaction in this situation. What is that about? How can I support you in this, right? That is a different conversation than saying, hey, every time we go here, you do this and you act like this. And it's such a more negative connotation, and it's not a productive container into which you can have a conversation. So learning the tools, how to communicate, and the awareness is a very big first step. Having that curiosity with yourself is big.
Yes. And what do you think for, like, I guess, practices that people use to release
Mm-hmm.
emotions? Like you've mentioned, like not needing years of therapy, you can actually just do
Right.
it in a matter of minutes or seconds. And so
Yeah.
like what kind of work have you seen, or like what do you recommend for people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mental and emotional release is a tool that I use, and it is clinically, there are randomized controlled trials behind this technique. They're out of Orange County, and I know Dr. Matt James and Dr. Gideon, forgot his last name. But this is an NLP technique where you release major emotions like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and I add on shame. Because Brene Brown just put that on the map for me. It
Yeah.
was like, we need to add this to there. And those are the major emotions that we often carry that have a lot of charge in the body and can drive our actions and cause us to have negative beliefs. So, for example, if somebody, trying to think. So I'll give this example. When I was really young, I was 10 years old. So when my father passed and he had cancer, we knew this was coming. I had so much anger. I had so much anger towards creator or God. And I was like, why did you do this? Why did you take my father away? Right. And that's, as an adult, you look at that, you think, that's not how it works. But as a child, that was how I felt, right? That was the emotion that was there. And so I had so much just anger. Like I knew I needed spirituality, but there was this like love hate thing with it. And when I got those techniques, mental emotional release, I thought, okay, this is a big thing I need to release and let go of. Because me being angry at creator or spirit, whatever, it's not serving me in any way. It's keeping me from diving deeper and really connecting to creator. So I used the techniques to release anger, sadness, those major emotions, right? Those 6 major emotions. And that allowed me to have a deeper spiritual practice and connection. And now I look back and I think, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I used to think that way for like, let's see, 10 to about 28. So 18 years, almost 20 years. I was holding on to this and heavy anger. Like I had liver problems, and in Chinese medicine, liver correlates with anger, the emotion of anger. And my liver started to heal when I released that heavy anger that I had. And that process that I took myself through to get through all those emotions, maybe a little over an hour, to release the major emotions to that event and that belief that had stuck with me for like almost 20 years.
Wow. And you
Yeah.
were able to do that on yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. Because this is a technique I use with almost all my clients. So it's so ingrained in me now that I can do that on myself and have the release.
Yes. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this is so important for people to hear that how much these like negative emotions or things that we're holding do manifest into health issues. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, like as clean as you can make your diet. And if you're running every day and you're exercising and you're drinking the water, it's just like if you're holding on to something like that, like it just does. It manifests into illness or attracts things into your life
Yeah.
that you don't realize what you're putting out.
Well, and then that becomes your baseline, meaning if you ask somebody, hey, do you have a stressful life? And they're like, no, not really, but they've kind of normalized always having the anger, the sadness, the fear, the frustration, whatever it is. It becomes normal, and they think, no, I'm not really stressed. And then you ask them traumas, and then they say, well, I was, thankfully I'm not a veteran. I have not been through anything traumatic. I have not had anything like a car accident or anything like that. And then I give my example, like I just gave with, the passing of my father, and they sit there and they say, oh, then yeah, there's some stuff I could benefit from releasing. And it's important, like you said, to put this on the radar and think of trauma isn't the traditional definition we've been given to slap on it. It can be very subjective for somebody. It all depends on, does that event affect you as a person? And if you make the call, like, yes, this was something that was very like a milestone for me, it was traumatic, then it was, and you have the opportunity to release it.
Yes. I think this is another important point is, like not comparing your trauma to someone else's or like what is trauma, because something that can seem so small from the perspective of like your current adult self, like as a child could have been just wrecked you, like just being embarrassed, in class, or like being rejected by a guy or something. It's just like, you should be able to just like get over it, but it can really hurt, especially like you said, between that age 0 and 7.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Man, this is awesome. Thank you for sharing all of this.
Yeah.
And do I know, so you said you're NLP coach and then also NTP, is that what it?
Yeah, nutritional therapy.
Okay. I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Amazing. And so I guess kind of going on that end of the conversation, I know you've been doing or explored the carnivore diet a little bit.
Yeah.
What got you into that?
I probably, like so many of your listeners, I am a podcast junkie. So I'm always listening to podcasts and books, and I had heard of the carnivore diet on, some other podcast. And I thought, okay, the nerd in me is like, oh, okay, this is interesting, because I knew that I needed to be eating more red meat. I just had never had a taste for it, And then I started to dig into the research on hormonal health, especially for women. And I'm like, man, I just eat chicken and fish and maybe beef once or twice a month back then. And my hormonal levels were in the tank. I mean, I looked probably about to head into menopause, like my hormones were just in the gutter. And so I researched it and I thought, okay, all I have to do is primarily protein, which is an easy thing for me, and maybe cut back on smoothies or shakes or salads or whatever. Less prep, fine. And I started experimenting with it, and I felt like the inflammation just kind of really easily melted off. And inflammation, people are like, well, doesn't matter because it's water weight, And I'm thinking, tell that to your jeans that are so uncomfortable in this Texas heat, okay? Tell that to your joints that are experiencing pain, right? Because of inflammation. Or even your moods, right? If you have inflammation in your brain, your moods are not going to be great. So I started experimenting with it and saw I didn't see like a dramatic weight loss because I'm fairly close to where I want to be as far as like body comp, but I just could tell, I just felt more energetic, and I didn't have a bloat, and the water weight just wasn't sticking to me at all anymore. So that was really great.
That's amazing.
And I did carnivore-ish because I was like, oh gosh, give up avocados, and I still do some dark chocolate. I do Taza chocolate, and only has 2 grams of sugar. That's a treat for me, but to just completely give it all up to somebody who loves to cook and entertain like me, I just was like, all right, I'll go carnivore-ish and see how my body does.
Yes. And I think that's a great point, because I think sometimes people turn it off because they're not ready to go to that full spectrum. And it's like, you don't have to. This is a spectrum. Like, just maybe press the needle a little bit to see how your body responds. And sustainability, it matters. Like, do you enjoy it? Like, is this something that you like? Like, I think I'm a weirdo because I really like just eating meat. Like, that's easy for my mind. I'm still modifying, but I think it's awesome that you just experimenting with your body and noticing it with your hormone health.
Absolutely. Having that freedom and knowing like everybody is different, and not everybody, but everybody. And so what works for one person, it's not going to automatically work for the other. You have this opportunity to have a relationship with your body. And the easiest way to tell if something is working for you is get some baseline labs, meaning like hormone health, metabolic health, vitamin D, blood sugar, thyroid. Have a nutritional protocol in place, 3 months, see how you feel, just have that relationship with yourself and how you're feeling, redo your labs and see how it is. I mean, that's kind of what I tell everybody. There's no one size fits all for everybody. And that's why carnivore-ish, that kind of worked for me, you know, a little bit. I have to cycle it for my hormonal health.
Yes, I love this. And definitely getting the labs and being mindful of that. Cause like, I think we've talked about before, is just the dogma versus, or dogma equals disconnect. So like just getting attached to carnivore and then just like not paying attention when you miss a period or you are breaking out or you just don't feel good. It's like, okay, well, there's something here. It doesn't mean that you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and be like, carnivore sucks. This doesn't work. It's
Right.
just like, wait, no, it may be really great for you. You can just add some tweaks. And then it's like, oh, now I feel awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I had to go more, I can be more kind of stricter carnivore during certain hormonal cycles. So like during, let's say right after your menstrual cycle, that's like your follicular phase for the ladies out there. That's like about 7 days where in that follicular and ovulatory phase, you can kind of do calorie restriction a little bit, right? Do some lower calories because your body has less cortisol at that moment, at those 2 weeks. So you can maybe intermittent fast 12 hours, do a little lower calorie. You can do some HIIT cardio at that point. All good.
So this then is after your period ends.
Right.
That would be like
day. So follicular is like, 7 to 10 days after your bleed stops. And then ovulatory right after that, 3 to 5 days. I mean, it varies from person to person. You can do calorie restriction, intermittent fast, do the HIIT work, you know, the boot camps, all the things. And that's cool. Then you get to your luteal phase, which comes after ovulation. And that's about 7 to 10 days. That 7 to 10 days. And then on your actual menstrual cycle during your bleed week, those two, you need more calories because you have higher cortisol in your body. So doing a lot of restriction, a lot of HIIT, if you're feeling stressed by any protocol, not just carnivore, right? If you're keto or anything else, maybe do a little bit more carbs. It doesn't mean you have to be high carb. You can still be lower carb, but some sweet potatoes, parsnips, broccoli, maybe some fruit, right? Some seasonal fruit if you feel okay with that. Do some of those sources because as a woman, your hormonal profile, if you restrict calories during those two phases, the luteal and your menstrual phase, you actually turn on fat storage and turn on muscle wasting. And this is not me. I got this information from Elisa Vitti, her book In the Flow. Highly recommend it. And I'm like, holy crap, this is why women are on this hamster wheel of why can't I get the body comp I want? Because you can't wake up every morning and do the HIIT and have this 5 a.m. morning routine and restrict and fast and like never eat a carb because certain hormonal cycles, you need more of that because you're a woman. We're different. We have a different physiology. I mean, different hormonal profile. And so that's the opportunity of like, okay, how would I switch carnivore up a little bit for myself as a woman and experiment, see how you feel hormonally, your energy, right? And assess from there, make the call yourself.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm experiencing this right now with myself and I've shared it with you, but even like that luteal phase, I definitely experienced this month, like insatiable hunger and my body just wanted carbs. And I was like, okay, well I've been doing carnivore and I was like, I'm going to get a potato. Just one potato. And it was just like, okay, this is what I just needed this. Yeah. It was like, and then now I have zero cravings for potato. Like I don't want anything, but like in that, it was like a couple days, it was just like my
Yeah.
body was like, we
I'll
need
get you some
something else.
carbs. Yeah. And, I think that's a very good conversation to have. Like, we've kind of always been told as women, okay, well, you have a slower metabolism, your brain is slower, you need to work in spite of your body. Just push through the cravings, just push through, like, just don't give in. And I'm sitting there now with this knowledge and awareness I have of, like, okay, doesn't work that way for women. If you wouldn't have had the, ability to say, you know what, I'm just going to have the potato.
Mhm.
This is not going to, like, wreck everything. One sweet potato or potato. And then you noticed, okay, I don't have the carb cravings anymore. Beautiful. You have that awareness now. Whereas if you would have just been and growed through it, and then you get to your menstrual phase and you're like, give me all the potatoes and all the land. I want a bag of sweet potato chips. I want carbs, like, because that's what happens. And that's why women say, why am I so hungry during my cycle? Why do I want all the carbs and all the chocolate? Well, if you keep restricting in that week before and even on that week, it just builds and builds and builds. And your body's like, we need more fuel. We need more nutrients. And listening to your body like you did was beautiful.
Absolutely. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that figuring that out too, it's also reconnecting with your goals. Like, is your goal to just be like that strict carnivore for the sake of it, for the sake of like just
Mm-hmm.
being able to say that you like didn't have a potato? Or it's like, what
Yeah.
is your actual health goal? Like, I want to be optimal. I want to have healthy periods. Like, that is such a sign. I want to be fertile and I want to give my body what it needs. And so it's like, that's to reconnect with the goal and realize when, if you get trapped in like what a research paper says or like what,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I think,
Yeah. And for women, like, they measures, like, vital measures. So, like, blood pressure, temperature, um, all these things for women. I want to say it was 2015. The American College of Obstetrics, I believe, said that your menstrual cycle is your fifth vital sign.
mm,
So you go in and you have a cycle that's 40 days, or you don't have a cycle, or you have amenorrhea, that's a vital sign now. So ladies, it's not something to be ignored. Whether you want to have children or not, your hormonal health and having that fertility is crucial to your health. And then even to, like, later years in life, your menopausal years and, like, postmenopausal, we're investing in our health down the road right now when we look at these, how these protocols work with our bodies or don't work with them. And that's what I like to just plant that seed in every woman now. Like, okay, this is working now. Maybe you tweak it, maybe you don't. And know that you're investing in your health later in life. You're investing in your hormonal health. So menopause is smoother of a transition. And so you have a much more beautiful time with it then.
yeah. And so if we can talk about like what ways people can kind of honor their bodies more throughout their cycle. Like, I know for me,
Mhm.
not fasting helped me start getting my cycle back. So
Mm-hmm.
other things, could we speak on that? Like,
Yeah.
what you can do to
So,
minimize?
I mean, you're dead on. Your gut was right. Fasting 12 hours is kind of like the max for women that are still menstruating. So if you're menopausal, postmenopausal, you can do a 16 8-hour fast. All good. But if you're still menstruating, 12 hours max, because once you go past 12 hours, your hormones start to just go wackadoodle. It doesn't love it. So I would say 12-hour fast tops. Really watching adrenal health as well, because when we start to make that transition into menopause, you still have, your hormones are made from your adrenal glands right now, and then, like, cholesterol, so like eating the red meat, right? But once you are on the other end of menopause, everything, your hormone output is, like, just strictly from your adrenals. like 100%. Your ovaries aren't contributing anymore. And so right now, if we make the investment of adrenal health, maybe that's supplementation, maybe that's really checking in and saying, okay, do I have coping mechanisms for stress? What do I have implemented in my life for self-care? Am I just going and pushing and doing a CrossFit workout day or like a weights day because I want to put the check there, even though I feel like hot garbage when I go and I'm wrecked after for 2 to 3 days? That's biofeedback from your body saying, hey girl, you might have pushed it too much. So having that love and care for your adrenals and saying, okay, maybe I don't do CrossFit today. Maybe I do some weights, but I take a slower pace and I don't do as heavy of weights. So you're still getting out there, you're still working, but you're not burning your adrenals out or like causing adrenal insufficiency. That's a big one, adrenal health. I would also say staying clear of industrial seed oils. So when women have cramps, they're like, why do I have such like biblical cramps, in the words of Elisa Vitti? Like, why are the cramps so biblical? Well, your body will produce prostaglandins. There's three different prostaglandins your body produces. PG1 is to help your body kind of have a smoother menstrual cycle. Prostaglandin 2, you make more of that when you eat canola, PUFAs, industrial seed oils, things like that. And that prostaglandin 2 from the canola and a lot of nuts and seeds will make you, put you in a place so you make more cramps, essentially. Your body will have more cramps during your cycle. So if somebody's like, man, I have really bad cramps, check industrial seeds and anything you have that's packaged. If you're doing a lot of nut butters and almond flours, maybe scale back a little bit, do some coconut flour, coconut butter instead, and sleep. Sleep is huge. That's where we get a hormonal refresh. And as a woman, we need about 20 minutes more sleep than men for our brain just to get through that lymphatic system and to kind of detox our brain as well. Because your brain detoxes when you sleep. So prioritize sleep. Those are the main ones. And then check caffeine and alcohol consumption and see how you feel with that. Which is hard. I know. I know that one's hard. And see how you feel with that.
Yeah.
Those.
For sure. And like, yeah, those low hanging fruits with the seed oils and even, yeah, just the common inflammatory foods to start off with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you for people who are like listening to this, and sometimes it's hard to not push yourself. Like there's such a fear also on gaining weight, the fear of body image of like, well, if I don't go do that HIIT workout, or if I do sleep in, and like, so what are your beliefs around, or what can you offer to help people kind of break through that mindset?
Yeah. The curiosity piece comes back to mind. So I would say just have some time for yourself and just write down, what do I intrinsically believe about my body and weight and how it looks, and what do I think I should and have to do in order to have whatever it is, if it's an aesthetic or check it off the list. Getting that awareness of where you got that programming and those beliefs, great first start. And also, okay, let's say somebody says, I feel like I have to look a certain way in order to get XYZ, right? Okay, cool. Once you get XYZ, what happens next? Right? You reach this pinnacle of a certain body composition or fitting into the jeans from high school, right? Or whatever it is. What next, and why is that? What does it mean? And why is there so much importance on that for you? Like really get into it. And then it kind of starts to unconsciously unravel like a lot of the programming and like lies women have been told, or even men as well. You only get love if you do XYZ, look a certain way, have a certain career, have a certain Instagram presence, whatever it is, right? Okay, well, why do you believe that? Who told you you had to believe that, right? That awareness is a great first start. And then start to cultivate Instagram feeds, podcasts, whom you talk to, what do your friends value as well, right? Because if you're in a space where after that awareness, you sit there and you think, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on myself. I want to believe something different. I want to have a better relationship with my body. If you are continuously around people that just care about like vanity metrics and don't value health, that's gonna kind of almost deter you at times. Versus if you surround yourself with a community that says, you know what, I really honor and respect that if you have to do something a little differently for your health and wellness, cool. And having those conversations with those friends, like, you know what, I do struggle with my body image. I know it might sound weird to you all, but it's something I struggle with. And that's not always easy to say. It is not. But I feel like once somebody says it, then in the back of everybody else's mind, they're like, well, yeah. And then you might have like go off to a corner and somebody comes to you and they're like, thanks for saying that. You know, I really struggle with this too. And I just didn't feel comfortable saying it in front of the group, but I'd love to talk about this sometime, because just having that other person that you can say that to, huge relief. Because you know you're not alone in it. And I think it's much more common than we're led to believe that it is. And also just, I think sometimes Instagram and TikTok and all the things, they give us this perception of how people look, and then you can meet them in real life and they look so different, and not in a bad way, but you're like, you look so different on social media. Like, I don't understand. So everything you see on social media too is not, it's not the reality of it also. Totally. That's a good start. Yeah.
Thank you. And yeah, I think it's important, like the people we do see on Instagram, we don't know what their hormones look like. We don't know if they're miserable in the background, and they may look a certain way, and it's something that I have to remind myself of too. And it's a balance of balancing, especially being in a coach in the space, like there is a perceived, like, well, if I don't look like super fit, like who's gonna listen to me, right? And so it's a balance of like, but I need to listen to myself and take care of myself and give my body what it needs.
Like, do you have energy? Do you have a sex drive? Do you feel good about yourself and your body? Do you are you happy, right? Like, those are markers that a six-pack will not tell you. Okay.
Right.
Because I have met people that just look phenomenal, and I'm like, you're like the inspiration. And then you talk to them and they're like, I know I feel like shit because I'm just pushing myself too much. And they have a six-pack, that's great. But if you lose your sex drive, if you lose your zest for life at the expense of a photo and your health eventually, that's your call to make. But it's a call that like everybody needs to know, just because you have a certain look doesn't mean you're healthy. You could be metabolically unhealthy and have a six-pack. It sounds weird. It's possible, you know? And don't do it at the expense of just a look, because at some point your health will tell you, hey, we cannot be doing this anymore.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's just so good. I think it needs to be definitely heard, and to release comparison to a lot of people, because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Really don't.
And I guess for wrapping up, if you could give 3 pieces of advice to listeners who are struggling with their health or with their body image or anything, mental, if you 3 pieces of advice, what would you
Mhm.
leave people with?
I believe, to start off with, I believe that we are all more powerful and capable than we've been led to believe. I believe a lot of that um, strength that you have unconsciously in your spirit can direct how your body acts and reacts and heals, and has the capacity to be strong and vibrant and healthy. And just know that your unconscious mind and your spirit are so powerful. I've heard people say, man, humans are just dumb. I'm like, oh my gosh, that hurts my heart to hear that. No, you are so smart, but you were programmed and told you have limits, and there's only a certain capacity, and you can only release emotions in years of therapy and da da da. No. You determine what you want to believe in your life, and you are more powerful than you've been led to believe. That's one. I feel like everybody should feel empowered. Two, I believe that what we surround ourselves with, food, nutrition, social media, books, all the things, that really does determine a lot of our actions. So being very conscious and aware of cultivating a tribe of people that you really connect with and that actually kind of challenge you to be a better person, right? And grow, because that is something that I've seen people get deterred. Like, they're on fire, right? And then they go home and visit family or relatives or go to a different environment that isn't as higher of a vibration or beneficial or aligned with what they are currently doing, and then they derail super fast. So environment is really important as well. And then personal growth and development kind of wraps up with spirituality for me. And that is something that, investing in yourself, maybe it's a meditation course, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a book, right, on how to tap into your divine feminine, or your masculine, right? For the men that are listening, that is one of the best investments you can make, because when you invest in yourself and you grow as a person, all these other things kind of are like a domino effect from there. Because I'm a Joe Dispenza fan.
Me too.
So he just talks about how when you're so tapped into personal growth and development and spirituality, what you kind of manifest in your life comes from there. So if you're working on yourself nonstop and you're letting go of things that don't serve you anymore, and you're kind of vibing at a higher place and more positive, you can make massive change in your life. And that's empowering. And that provides so much freedom for people too. Freedom is a big thing for me. So working on yourself isn't really work, it's an investment. So invest in yourself, I would say. That would be the third one.
Beautiful. These are amazing. These, I think, are my 3 favorite that I've heard. These are so good.
Awesome.
Um, and for, I'm meant to ask you about the divine feminine, and
Yeah.
if we can really quick rabbit hole down that.
Yeah.
um, um,
Totally.
so ways to reconnect to our like for the female listeners, how can we connect to, even the male listeners, to connect to our
Yeah.
divine feminine?
And everybody has masculine and feminine in them. And for the men listening, I would say perk up, tune up your ears, because you have mothers, sisters, friends, girlfriends, wives, whomever in your life, that if you understand how the divine feminine works, then you can be a support for them, and your relationship with that woman in your life will shift for the better. So that's always a hot tip I give the men. To tap into that, I would say really decide, again, baseline curiosity. What do I believe about myself as a woman, and where do I feel like my value comes from? Where does where do these thoughts that I have come from, right? Do I believe, so for example, I grew up only child and I come from a Latin family. And it was very interesting because my mom was one of 8 kids and 8 kids, 3 girls, and the women were always the ones that had to take care of mom and dad. Um, they just were in charge of everything, meaning they did all the work, and they would have opinions about certain things, and my uncles kind of wouldn't listen. So very like old programming of, well, a good woman just kind of like complies and doesn't have a voice. And my mom was not that way. And so I got that from her. So for me, it's always been, I have a voice. I'm gonna speak up. And it's not, oh, you're being difficult. Oh, you're being loud. Oh, you're just whatever. I'm like, no, I have a voice and I'm going to give my opinion and communicate that in a healthy way, right? Because so often women were told like, well, you're either a bitch at work or you're just really quiet and you don't get anywhere. And I think, well, yeah, that's pendulum swing, right? Like one end and the other, but what about the middle? That's where the magic happens. And you kind of get to decide, what do I believe a healthy woman can do and communicate? And it's okay for me to take time off during the month and like not go to CrossFit all the time and not do the calorie restriction. And it's okay. It's hot as heck right now in Texas, right? Like, it's okay for me to not wear the skinny jeans and put on a flowy dress. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that I've gained weight or that I'm not fit and like sexy anymore. That's just, I'm honoring the rhythms and cycles of who I am as a woman. And everybody, each and every woman gets to decide, what do you believe and who do you want to be? And you get to write that script. Nobody else has the authority to tell you that. They don't. And really surrounding yourself with women that embody the positive feminine, because there's a shadow, meaning like, so people say toxic masculinity. That's the shadow side of masculinity. But then there's also the light, positive of masculinity, right? Men that can be very caring towards women and can flow in and out of masculinity in a positive, healthy way, right? The same goes for women. Surround yourself with amazing women that you feel are working in the light, and that will help you. And then a few books I feel like that are really, really pivotal. One is, I have it right here, it's ready. This is Marianne Williamson. It's called A Woman's Worth. And it's a quick, easy read too. It's a short book. It was very refreshing to read and tap into the divine feminine. And then Elisa Vitti is, she's a nutritional therapist, and I mentioned her quite a bit in this podcast, but she has a book called Woman Code and In the Flow. Those are great to really help you figure out, okay, I'm a woman. What are my hormonal rhythms and cycles and emotions? What am I going through? It's embarrassing to say, but in my 30 some years of life, there are things I learned about myself as a woman physiologically that I didn't know until I read this book. And I'm like, why did nobody tell me? I was not aware of this. And when you have that awareness, it normalizes a lot of things for you as a woman. And you're like, oh, okay, it's not that there's something wrong with me or I'm broken or I can't keep up with this biohacking world. It's that I'm a woman and I'm just different. We're a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful beings. And we're this intricate snowflake, right? And so nuanced and complex. And there's various colors of the rainbow within us. And it's just a different structure than it is for men. So knowing that it's okay to be different than a man. And Dr. Jolene Brighten is the last woman that I just love her. She has a book called Beyond the Pill, which if you're on hormonal birth control and wanting to figure out what's going on with your body, how to get off it, how to nurture your body being on it, she's a fabulous resource and very much an advocate for women too.
Awesome. I'm writing all these down. I'll put them in the show notes
Yeah,
for sure. Oh, thank you so much for this.
absolutely.
And what are you working on now, and like how can people find you?
Yeah, I have a free 3-part video series on how to release anxiety anywhere and fast. So these are 3 different techniques. They're videos that you would get. And this is something that you can listen to in your car on a 5 to 15-minute break. And it's me guiding you through 3 different processes. You don't have to do all 3, you can do just one. And if you're like midday and work has been kind of stressful, do one of these techniques, see how well it works, and then just keep re-listening to the videos and learning them. And you'll have these techniques in the back pocket when you're feeling stressed or have anxiety kick in. Like, okay, just give me like 5 minutes to like get this tool out, release the anxiety, cortisol level goes back down, and you have that hormonal health kind of deposit in the bank account now because you're managing your stress levels. That's something free they can do. I will provide you the link for that. And I'm also working on a course on how to rewire your brain. That's something I took a poll on Instagram earlier this summer, and everybody's like, anxiety is great, but we want to learn how to rewire our brain and like these release techniques at home. So
Yeah.
that's a course that I'm working on right now.
Amazing. I cannot wait. I will be taking the
Yeah,
course. Yes.
absolutely. Everybody needs to have these tools. I want everybody to have the tools. Yeah.
Yes. And I guess so connect with you on Instagram at
Yeah. Creatively Nourished on Instagram. That is where I'm most active. And then I'm rarely on Facebook. You can try me there, but Instagram is really the place where I'm at.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yay, Annette. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And I will definitely,
Absolutely.
yeah, I will put your information in the show notes so people can connect with you. And
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.